Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy Jubitaz. So lately I've been doing these why do people hate this character or that character, and they seem to be kinda popular with you guys. So I decided it only makes sense I make a why do people hate Obito? Because Obito is like one of the most, if not the most hated character in the manga. And it kinda makes sense. I mean, he was responsible for a lot of atrocities, but I do see a lot of people give the free pass to pretty much all the morally gray villains in Naruto and then deny that pass to Obito, that he didn't suffer enough or as much as other villains. So that's what I'll mostly be addressing today. Now, since I made a video about Obito recently, I won't be diving very deep into his backstory. I highly suggest you check it out if you want to get the full story. I'll mostly tackle the most popular reasons as to why many in the Naruto community hate Obito, when they're justified and when they're missing the bigger picture. Make sure you subscribe, and otherwise, let's get to it. Exhibit A. Obito wasn't justified enough to become a bad guy. I've already touched on this a bit in my Was Obito Right video, but I've seen so many people share the opinion that Obito didn't have it as bad as, say, Nagato or Gaara, and hence he doesn't have the right to be a bad guy. I honestly don't even know how to respond to such a critique. Like, Nagato and Obito had a very similar backstory. Both were orphaned, both experienced war, both watched their best friend die and snapped in retaliation, and both were manipulated by a Madara. Except that Madara, of course, had planned all this in order to groom Obito to become his replacement. Not only did he know how the Sharingan worked, but he manipulated him prior to make him think that the infinite Tsukuyomi was the salvation of this world, or the one cure to the harshness of reality itself. Fast forward, when Obito asked Madara why he chose him specifically to be his spawn, Madara says something along the lines of, because of how much love Obito had for Rin, his comrades, for the Hokage and the village. Madara said that he knew that if he took that away from Obito and subjected him to despair, that love would transform to an equally profound hatred. So it's almost inevitable that he would get consumed by despair. That's why Obito reminds me of Harvey Dent or Two-Face from The Dark Knight. An ideal member of society at first, subjected to a tragedy, had half his face deformed, lost his girl, and afterwards became a menace to society. Also, a lot of people seem to brush off how Obito was left for dead crushed under a boulder prior to being found by Madara when discussing his tragedies. I don't know what to tell you guys, but if I were crushed under the weight of a cave and left to rot and I somehow made it out, I definitely won't be coming out the same. Just think about it this way. You endure tragedy after tragedy, you keep seeing the worst that life has to offer, but you still hold on to hope, because despite everything, the most important person to you, the only person that supported you, is still alive. So you keep pushing, try to stay positive, and then you get duped, and some madman behind the scene orchestrates what's essentially the worst thing you could see, ever. And then you get offered this alternative, a world where everyone, including you, gets to live their ideal life. You can see why he'd abandon hope. Also, let's not forget that he's 14 when all of this goes down, easily impressionable. Instead of having someone reaffirm hope at his lowest point, like Hinata or Minato did to Naruto, Obito had Madara and Zetsu that would just push him deeper down the darkness. Now, there are some people that think that the Madara manipulation is just a front, and that brings me to Exhibit B, how Obito remained on this evil path even after Madara died. I've seen a lot of Obito haters say something along the lines of, maybe Madara pushed him down that path, but Madara died long ago. He should have figured it all out by then. You can't blame it all on Madara. First off, no one's blaming it all on Madara. Both Sasuke and Nagato were subtly manipulated by Obito, and they're both responsible for their own actions. And it's the same with Obito. I will say that Madara did manipulate Obito to a higher degree than the others, and even had Zetsu there by his side to ensure that he remained on that path. And honestly, what was there for Obito to see? When he came to control the mist, he found out that it wasn't Kakashi that killed Rin, and that the hidden mist had a ploy to attack the leaf, but it's not like he blamed Kakashi in the first place. He blamed reality itself. He even saw through Madara's deception a bit, and even told him that he didn't consider him an ally, and wasn't gonna revive him. Another thing you have to remember is that Obito did have doubts about his plan, and the path he chose. But as he grew older and started to think more critically of it, by that point, he'd invested too much time and energy and basically everything into this plan. So if we fast forward to when he's facing the Alliance, he's not just fighting Naruto, but also the ideals he'd abandoned long ago, trying to reaffirm his current dream, one that he believed everyone would benefit from regardless, since it's this ideal dream world. He believed that this was the only way to true peace. By the war arc, he knows that it's too late to have regrets. He had to be right. Call it denial, call it escapism, whatever. But it's a lot more complex than he just blindly followed Madara's words. Exhibit C. Obito's attack on the village, as well as the other atrocities he's committed. This is one of the biggest reasons why people hate Obito, his role as the perpetrator behind the Nine Tails incident, and in turn, the death of Minato and Kushina. Cause let's face it, that's the real reason behind the Obito hate. And it's not to defend Obito for what he did, but this whole shaming one villain for being bad while giving others the free pass is what bugs me. Remember when I compared Nagato to Obito? Well, this is another thing that they share with each other. They both killed their sensei. I mean, technically, Minato died sealing the Nine Tails while Pain literally killed Jiraiya. And you don't see as many people get on Nagato's case about it. But anyways, Obito's attack on the village was heinous and there's no defending that. But you have to remember that he was like 14, 15 during that time. Very impressionable. And this was the second time that Minato was too late to save one of his students. Minato, the fastest man alive, yet could never make it in time. So you could see why he could develop a grudge against his former teacher. This isn't to justify the attack, but more so explain why Obito would commit such a thing. He may have ruined Naruto's childhood, but he also started the prophecy of Naruto. Everything happens for a reason, and Obito's actions would create the antithesis of him that would rise against him and return him back to the righteous path. The thing is, you can't fully defend Obito's actions from all the criticism that he gets, since he was the main bad guy for a majority of the series, and was responsible for a lot of catastrophes. But that's kind of what a morally gray villain or a broken hero is. They commit however many atrocities it takes to fulfill their own twisted idea of peace. Obito himself was written to be relatable as a villain. He's kinda like what happens when you give in to despair or negativity of this world. He's literally the Naruto who lost his path and gave up hope. That's why the Talk no Jutsu worked on him. Even though it's a very unpopular conclusion to his villain arc, based on who Obito is as a character, and how he saw himself in Naruto at every turn, and how he did share Naruto's ideals at a certain point, and just abandoned them because of despair. And of course Obito resisted Naruto. To acknowledge Naruto at that point was to admit that he'd wasted the past 16 years, that all of the death, crimes, and destruction were for nothing. He truly believed that the infinite Tsukuyomi was the only way to achieve peace for everyone. Remember how I compared Obito and Nagato earlier? Well, Obito tried to do the same thing Nagato did and revive everyone with Rinne Rebirth, but he was gonna have to make up for his crimes another way. When Obito switches sides and helps Team 7 against Madara and Kaguya, he's not doing that to redeem himself. He knows that he's beyond redemption at that point. But now that he's been shown the righteous path, he was gonna use whatever time he had left to help Naruto, because he knew that that was the right thing to do. But now we get to the final, Exhibit D. The most popular thing you hear about him. Obito's a simp. He did it all to win Rin in a delusion world. First off, I want to start by saying that Obito wanted to be the one to cast the infinite Tsukuyomi, so he was never planning on being in the infinite dream himself. I know it's confusing because he says let's create a world where you live in, but I think what he meant was, in the Tsukuyomi world, there would be a Rin, an Obito, and Kakashi and Minato, and they would live free of the misfortunes of reality. Rin was a symbol. She represented how unjust the system was, and how it didn't work in everyone's favor. Of course, Obito cared for her. She She was the most positive force in his life. Rin inspired hope and supported Obito's dreams. Minato was always too busy to care for his students, and Kakashi wasn't exactly the nicest person prior to the Kanabi Bridge. It was Obito that inspired him to change. And other than that, he had no one in his life except for his filler grandmother. So to him, Rin reminded him of a more positive time in his life when he wasn't leading a criminal organization and plotting the end of the world. Now he does think about Rin pretty often, so if you want to call him a simp, then fair enough. That adds to his tragic character persona. And as a fellow simp, I can sympathize. But I will say that Sakura and Hinata were much bigger simps than Obito ever was. I think that was mostly it for why do people hate Obito. I know a lot of people claim that he started the war because of Rin, but I think that claim's been debunked so much that it's almost become a meme. Obito verbatim tells Kakashi, "If you think I started this war over Rin, to call you misguided would be an understatement." Even when Obito brings her up as much as he did to Kakashi, it was Obito's own nihilistic way of toying with Kakashi. It was akin to the dark individual he's become. But Obito's on the same roster as characters like Gaara and Nagato. Obito just happens to have been a villain for longer since Naruto's Talk no Jutsu happens much later than the other guys. I mean, if Naruto left them to their devices, I'm sure Gaara and Nagato would have gone on to commit way more atrocities. Now, Obito's one of my favorite characters, so I might be more sympathetic to him than others. And based on the antagonist role that he takes up, it makes sense that a bunch of fans would hate him. But there is something commendable about someone that's fucked up so badly and already knows that they're too far gone, yet they spend their last moments trying to right their wrongs. Obito's a cautionary tale. He's what could have happened to Naruto had he not been the main character and gave in to despair. Like Sasuke, Obito's emotions make him come off as a very human character. And a lot of people hate him for that. But that's also the reason why he's regarded as very popular and very relatable by the fanbase.